Although highly elated at what she had learned from the Tophams, Nancy Drew was at a loss to know how to proceed. Undoubtedly, the old Crowley clock was set up in the bungalow at Moon Lake, but to get there was another matter. Nancy was determined to profit by the information, but was confronted with a number of serious problems. Moon Lake was located among the hills 40 miles away, and the roads were not of the best. Nancy did not know the exact location of the Topham cottage. Then, too, she needed an excuse for making the long trip. If the Tophams learn I have gone to Moon Lake, they may become suspicious, she counseled herself. I must think of some excuse to broadcast as a smokescreen. But try as she would, Nancy could think of nothing. She took a certain amount of pride in her detective work, and now that she felt she had struck a valuable clue, she did not wish to ask advice from her father. She preferred to solve the mystery herself and then surprise him with the solution. At dinner that night, Nancy was unusually silent, and Carson Drew commented on her preoccupation. "It seems to me you have been looking troubled lately," he observed. "Do you feel well?" "Never felt better in my life," Nancy laughed. "Just the same, I believe you need a vacation. I realize that it isn't easy for a girl your age to look after a big house like this. After a time, the responsibility gets to be wearing." "How stupid of me!" Nancy exclaimed. In her excitement, she permitted a fork to fall from her hand and clatter against the plate. Carson Drew, who did not comprehend what was passing through his daughter's mind, looked at her in surprise. "Stupid?" he inquired. "Oh, I mean it was strange I didn't think of Helen Corning before this," Nancy said hastily. "Helen is going to a girls' camp on Moon Lake. I'm dying to go to Moon Lake. May I start the first thing in the morning? I know I can get in. They have room for half a dozen more girls," Helen said. "I think it would be an excellent idea, Nancy. A nice rest will do wonders for you. Go by all means." Nancy Drew was delighted that she had stumbled upon an excuse which would make it appear natural for her to go to Moon Lake. Early the next morning, after packing a suitcase, she started off in the roadster. As it was not out of her way to go by the river road, she decided to stop at the Horners and give Grace the dress goods she had promised her. As she drove in at the gate, one glance told Nancy that something was wrong. She saw a number of dead chickens in the barnyard, and as the Horner girls came toward her from the direction of the hen house, it was evident that Allie had been crying. "Why, what is the matter?" Nancy asked quickly. "Oh, it's my chickens, Nancy. They're all dying. I can't understand it. This morning when I went to feed them, I found 10 dead. I'm so discouraged." "And yesterday a fox took 2, Grace added. "I guess fate is against us." "I'm afraid I'll lose all of my chickens before I get through," Allie declared unhappily. "I don't know what is killing them. They seem to have a strange disease." "Allie is all broken up," Grace said quietly. "She's worked so hard with her chickens. Most of them are pets. And then we need the money so badly. Now that dressmaking has fallen off, the chicken money is our only means of support." "Please, won't you let me help?" Nancy begged, reaching for her pocketbook. "Accept a little loan to tide you over." Grace shook her head firmly. "Thank you for your kindness, Nancy, but we can't take your money. We'll manage somehow." "If only Uncle Josiah had provided for us," Allie sighed. "You haven't learned anything more about the second will, Nancy?" "I haven't anything definite to report," Nancy replied, evading the question. She did not wish to raise false hope, and she thought it best not to tell of her discovery. "But I'm still hoping we'll be able to trace the will." "I doubt it," Grace commented pessimistically. "I'm on my way to Moon Lake now," Nancy told the girls. "I stopped here to deliver the dress goods." She handed a package to Grace.
The pattern is inside, and I'm easy to fit, so you'll have no trouble." Grace's face brightened as she accepted the bundle. "Oh, Nancy, I can't thank you." "It is I who should thank you," Nancy laughed. "And now let me pay for the dress in advance." Again, Grace stubbornly shook her head. "Not until the work is finished. That isn't good business." Nancy saw that Grace and Allie were too proud to accept help, and regretfully abandoned the idea of trying to give them money. "I'll come back in a few days for a fitting," she promised as she prepared to drive away. Nancy's talk with the Horner girls had left her rather depressed, for she realized that, in spite of their pride, Allie and Grace would soon be forced to accept charity. Oh, if only she could help them. And poor old Abigail, Nancy thought. If Josiah Crowley had used a grain of sense, things wouldn't be in such a muddle. Nancy soon branched off from the river road and headed south toward Moon Lake. The highway was little traveled, and it was necessary for her to devote all of her attention to driving. The road had not been dragged after a recent rain, and the ruts were deep. Jagged rocks and stones were scattered in the path, and it seemed to Nancy that the hills went straight up and straight down. Presently, she noticed that the roadster had taken a strange notion to turn to the left of the road, in spite of her efforts to keep it in the middle. Not without foreboding a trouble, she stopped the car and got out to make a tour of inspection. As she had suspected, a rear tire was flat. "A puncture," Nancy murmured in disgust. "If that isn't just my luck. Oh, well, I suppose I must fix it myself, because there won't be another car along on this road." It was not the first time Nancy Drew had changed a tire, but she never relished the task.
Rummaging under the seat, she pulled out the tools and quickly jacked up the rear axle. She loosened the lugs which held the tire in place and tugged at it. Again and again she pulled, but the huge balloon tire could not be budged. Then, as she gave one mighty tug, it came off, and Nancy Drew fell backwards into a sitting posture in the road. "Well, it's off anyway," she told herself with satisfaction as she brushed the dirt from her clothing. It required but a few minutes to put on the spare tire and fasten the old one to the rear of the car. Then, in relief, Nancy started on her way again, but the accident had delayed her nearly an hour. It was after 12 o'clock when at last she came within sight of Camp Avondale, where Helen Corning was staying. Through the tall trees, she caught a glimpse of a long row of shacks and saw the smoke rising from the cookhouse. Beyond, the blue lake sparkled and glimmered in the sunlight. As Nancy drove into the camp, a group of girls gathered about the roadster. Helen Corning came running out of a cabin to greet her chum. "Girls, it's Nancy Drew!" she exclaimed enthusiastically. "Now the fun will start. Park your car over there back of the cookhouse, Nancy." "Am I too late for dinner?" Nancy demanded. "I'm nearly starved." "You're just in time," Helen assured her. "Oh, Nancy, I'm so glad you came." "So am I." "How long can you stay?" "Oh, I don't know. Until you get tired of me, probably." "Then you'll stay for the rest of the summer," Helen laughed. Nancy was escorted to the main building of the camp, where she met the lady in charge and registered. "She is to stay with me," said Helen, and so it was arranged. When the girls walked off, Nancy told Helen about selling the charity dance tickets and gave her the money paid by Mr. Topham. "He surely was generous," said Helen in surprise. "He did it just to show off," declared Nancy. "I am positive of it." Nancy scarcely had time to deposit her suitcase under her cot and freshen up a bit from her long ride when dinner was called. The food was plain but substantial, and already she discovered that she had developed an enormous appetite. Dinner over, she was rushed from one thing to another. The girls insisted that Nancy join them in a hike. She returned to camp with a desire for a good rest, but Helen Corning had other plans.
"We're all going for a ride in the launch before supper," she declared. "Oh, yes, at night. This is your first day here. You'll be used to it in a day or so. Either that or I'll be a wreck. But you don't want to miss the launch ride, Nancy. You'll have a splendid opportunity to see all the summer cottages on Moon Lake." "Summer cottages?" Nancy asked quickly. Instantly, she thought of the Topham bungalow and wondered where it was located. Undoubtedly, the launch ride would give her the opportunity to find out. "You'll go, won't you?" Helen begged. "You can rest after supper." "Yes, I'll go," Nancy promised. "You couldn't keep me here."
Although she was tired, she was really enjoying herself immensely. 6 girls loaded themselves into the launch, and someone started the motor. "It's always a relief when the engine starts," Helen explained. "Every so often it balks." As the little launch turned out into the lake, it seemed to Nancy that she had never seen a more beautiful sight. The sun, which appeared to be sinking down into the water, resembled a great ball of fire. Yet she did not forget the real purpose of the trip. "The Toffel have a bungalow up here, haven't they?" "Yes, it's across the lake from here. We'll come to it presently." "The Tophams aren't there now?" "Oh, no, the cottage is closed. There's a Negro caretaker who looks after it. They call him Jeff Tucker." "Is it hard to get to the place?" "Oh, not if you go by launch, but it's a long way if you take the road around the lake." "I didn't know you were particularly interested in the Tophams, Nancy." "Oh, they're no friends of mine," Nancy returned hastily. "I was merely curious." After a time, as the launch chugged along close to the shore, Helen waved her hand toward a bungalow which was set back some distance from the water. "The Tophams own that one," she informed her chum. Eagerly, Nancy turned her head and looked. She told herself that she would remember the location. "We're going to have a wonderful time here together," Helen chatted happily on. "Next week there's going to be a big dance, too." "Oh, there's so much of interest at Moon Lake, Nancy. You'll stay, won't you?" Involuntarily, Nancy's eyes swept the shore and came to rest on the Topham bungalow. "You're right, Helen," she agreed heartily. "There are a number of interesting things here. Yes, if you want me to, I'll stay."